Hello everybody, it's been a long time since I made an episode of The Beggar's Tomb. So here I am again, and it's been a long time since I made an episode, but it hasn't been a long time since I lived an episode. Boy, I don't only make this show, I live it. And I'm not saying that to feel sorry for myself or to get you to feel sorry for me. It's kind of good and it's bad. When you look at somebody's life from the outside, lots of people's lives look really interesting to live, and depending on your situation at the time you look at their life, it can be enviable. That's why it's, with a little bit of wisdom, you realize that everybody struggles difficult in its own way. And I know what it's like to do a job. I want to say a shout out to everybody in the FBI, CIA, NSA community. And now the joke here, I got a joke for this. It says, my joke goes, "Oh, well, excuse me for assuming I was surrounded by intelligence here." Because you're all part of the intelligence thing. And intelligence is important. We all need information. And I've got some, but probably not any that's towards any of your objectives. Unless, it can be from a good standpoint, like to get to heal things all across this nation. And I mean that. Let me just start with talking about how I got into this job. Now, my first thing I did as the Beggar's Tomb, first time I used those words as part of a project that I was working towards was Beggar's Tomb Video, BTV I called it. You got like B movies. My concept was BTV, Beggar's Tomb Video, because it was VHS tapes that you would watch on television of Grateful Dead concerts. And, the Grateful Dead always had a policy that people could record their stuff. Now, venues didn't always allow cameras like that in. This was before the days of, cell phones, everybody having a camera right there on their phone. You had to take a camcorder in there. You're talking a little larger thing. But anyhow, a lot of videos got out that way. Now, the distribution wasn't really supposed to be for money. Now, so in order to make it, for me to justify what I was doing, to do it, because once I saw other people selling them, they were even selling them in record stores and stuff, for lots of money, like $60, $70 a tape, I valued it as a commodity. And I'm like, because I valued it as a commodity, I figured other people would too. Well, I only sold mine for $10, and doing taxes and stuff later and figuring out like money-making things. Every year that I did the tour vending stuff, I could, actually, if I broke it down all out for the IRS, I lost money every single year. Because I had to do that once. Like when I was going through the separation with my kid's mom and stuff, and I had to show my earnings. I wanted to show I was a good earner and stuff, but I, looked up all the tax deductions I could write down, and the tours I went on, and all the gas money I spent, and the hotels, and the meals and everything, and actually, I lost money by IRS's own standards every single year. I was taking money in, but money it seemed like, I've used it in the past videos I've made and talking about my life, making lots of money. A more correct way to term that would be a lot of money passed. I have exchanged a lot of money because it went straight from my hands into the hotels, into the gas tanks and stuff. A lot of money passed my way, but it didn't obviously go towards me. So, when I had some money to invest in things that could keep the Beggar's Tomb rolling, I had to do it, and then did it on the minimum shoestring budget. Now, the videotapes I made, something I wanted to do to elevate them above the other stuff and to justify my parasitical presence towards the Grateful Dead was to put artwork in individual covers, because I grew up collecting comic books. And the thing about a comic book is it's kind of cool to have even if you don't open it up, just to look at the cover of it. And I wanted these videos to be the same way, because only so often is that videotape going to be in your VCR, but it's always going to be sitting around somewhere. You know, the VHS tapes were bigger than even DVDs, and then now that stuff's in your thing, you know, you might have a thumbnail picture for your digital file, or you may not. It really is unimportant as long as you can find it. You don't really, you have to show people your cell phone if you want to see the picture. You know, so it was a valuable thing, and the way I had to do it is I'd go to do the artwork, painted them out. I'll be right back. So here's a little small example of one that was a cover of VHS tape. Now, you know, my artwork was really, I'd have to say, just beginning. And it was because I had a justified purpose to do it. It's fun to do it, but also it's time consuming. And by the time I was doing this, I was already needing to survive off money I made. I didn't need to make much money because I didn't have kids yet and stuff, or own anything really. So I just needed to make enough money to contribute my portion of gas money to get around, which with 7 of us in one van didn't really take very much. So the first time I went out, I would sell 1 videotape at each show. Now at that point I was selling for $20 a piece. So 1 was enough, $20 was enough to pay my portion of gas and to eat, because gas was a lot cheaper then. You know, it sounds old-timey, and it was a long time ago. So anyhow, that's the front cover, and then the back covers would usually have a track listing. This is a portion of one back cover. And then there'd be a side part here. Well, go to Kinko's and print them out, trim them with scissors, and then get the cases behind Blockbuster. Blockbuster Video used to throw their cases away for the rentals after they got rid of the rental. You know, they'd have 20 copies of, you know, say Forrest Gump when it comes out, and then take them down when people start printing them all. And you don't reuse the cases because the bindings get wore out, so they throw them away, and I'd be able to go get a big bag of them. Some of them would have tears and I couldn't use them. Usually I could use them. And, you know, I was getting them from the dumpster, so it wasn't hurting them at all. And, you know, so that didn't cost me anything but the effort to do it. It was a matter of recycling it. And now, covers to go to Kinko's was the place you got most of your copies done back then. That cost some money, like $1 a copy, and then, you know, so anyhow, that's how I got started in the Beggar's Tomb. That was the first thing I did. Well then, every now and then I'd come across a person. Most deadheads were really appreciative of it and happy to get the opportunity to have them. And if they weren't, they usually didn't say anything. I got very few complaints, but when I did get a complaint from a deadhead, you know, to be like, you're selling this stuff that the dead want it put out there for free. That's what it's supposed to be for free. And then I tried to explain what my contribution was in the dubbing of the tapes, where I'd, you know, tape them and get up every 2 hours and change tapes. And there was an amount of work in it that I felt justified to get some money back. But at the same time, I hated a person who really was a true believer in the spirit of the Grateful Dead to not be like what I was doing. So I wanted to contribute what I could contribute back to it, and put a lot of heart and soul into it because I did love the group. So I wanted to put love into it and hard work, and I did. But then people be like, well, yeah, but you're making money off their hard work, not your own. Which was, you know, to a large degree true. Even if they didn't like the cover, they might buy the video because they went at that show or something. So then I branched into doing tour posters. And the tour posters were different. Let's see if I got one here or not. Here's what I do have. Here's what I got with me, because I was not just a deadhead, but also a historian of the whole scene. This is Neal Cassady. These were some of the first paintings I did to feature. Neal Cassady, if you don't know, he was influential. Jerry Garcia went as far as saying that if there hadn't been a Neal Cassady, there wouldn't have been a Grateful Dead. Now, he lived at 710 Ashbury, on and off, up in the attic. He would stay there when he came into San Francisco. And they met Neal through Ken Kesey. Now, this is a picture of the Merry Pranksters picture. This is Ken Kesey, Ken Babbs, who's still alive, and Neil Cassidy. So, another thing I wanted to contribute, because it was what I was. They're so influential on me that, there was a time when I was 16, 17, 18, that I thought that life ended at 25. The people who I really looked up to and admired, mainly like heavy metal rock stars, the best work they did was before they were 25 years old. And I didn't really have anybody over 25 that I really was really aspired to be, really admired the way they were living their life at the time, until I got into the Grateful Dead. And through the Grateful Dead, I learned about the Merry Pranksters. That was where I could dive into it, because you can listen to music, but it communicates one thing. Books communicated a whole other thing, and they actually really rekindled my desire for knowledge, because they were so good at music. I wanted to know more about that power that they had, because to me it was power, it's magic, as much as close to magic as it could be. Like, everything, once you understand how to do it, it sometimes seems less magical. Now with music, I'm not so sure that's the case. I mean, my experience, even what the music I've made, I don't know how to get other people tell me that they're blown away by it, but to me, I'm blown away to it comes out of me, and just that music can come out at all like that, because I don't know, it just seems like magic as much as, So that's what I wanted to learn, their backgrounds, and then I learned about their backgrounds. I thought this magnificent story that just extends into the past and connects with all these different people. Well, that's what the Beggar's Tomb is, and that's what all these artists are about. So from the Beggar's Tomb videos, then to tour posters, then now all this became part of my vending stand that was traveling around, because once I had kids, I needed to make more money. Well, people don't always need videotapes, but people always need to eat, so food became a steady thing. Well, it seemed like, well, are you contributing art or are you contributing food? Well, if you can think about the senses as what you take in appreciation from, food is definitely an artwork. So at the vending stand, I would hook up speakers and play music. That's what you see with the car on the Beggar's Tomb tapestry, with battery and the speakers wired up, because that's with a power inverter. I could take that DC power and power speakers. Now, sometimes people would use generators. Well, generators are really loud. Where a car is a generator, it produces electricity, and the tailpipe muffles it out. So if the battery starts to die, you can always start the car. And it was an ongoing power source for a rather good, pretty big sounding, stereo system. 540 watts, something like that. I used was the highest wattage I used. So, okay, so I had food, could play music. So I'd DJ to some extent. I'd usually make a mixed tape. I like cassette tapes because didn't have to worry about skipping. You just had to flip the tape every 45 minutes. 45 minutes, I could do that. Skip in the middle while you're cooking, and especially a good jam nightmare. And CDs were very durable for traveling, and this was before I had an iPod. I don't know when they first came out, but it was before I had access to something like that. So later on to a laptop computer, I'd take that and run, definitely increased how much music I could pre-program ahead of time. But so, had the food for the taste buds, had the smell, because I was making pork chop quesadillas, so that have right there covers the taste buds and the smell. The earbuds, the hearing was covered with the music. Then sight. Well, the feel, the only thing I was contributing there is when you hold a nice warm pork chop quesadilla in your hand. So they're basically all the senses are covered. So in that way, it was a five-dimensional art form, and all part of the the Grateful Dead tour, and the Beggar's Tomb I felt was part of it. And there were days that it was at the heart of it all, and everybody's got their moment in the limelight, and we're not. And There were some times where it was good. It's one thing I'd like to do, because every time you go in and you do this thing, this caravan, this gypsy lifestyle that you're traveling into town with, and your caravan, sometimes you meet confrontation when you get there, and there might be people amongst the deadheads that were causing troubles, and then sometimes people assumed it was that they wanted to act one way when they got there, didn't know. It's one of the things that the more days you spend out on the road traveling, the more tolerant you get to be of the people who are iffy about whether it should happen or not. And then sometimes there's days that you've got to give in, that if they don't want you to set up you, and you're not going to be able to push your will and let you do it. It's just that there's times you got to cut your losses. So, but one thing I like to do to make peace was like look at, assess the person passing through, whether it's cop, staff member, local business owner, try and figure out what their favorite song might be. If you play a person's favorite song as an introduction, then lots of times that's a good icebreaker. So I take a diverse range of music all stuff I like. I didn't like, but I like a broad range of music. So I usually can find something, at least in the ballpark. So that's with the tour thing. Now all this, Beggar's Tomb, as you see, it's about giving back to these artists who already, they can't pay me. Assumingly, these deceased people can't do something for me, but they do anyhow. But through their music and through what they left behind, it does do something for me. So, Jesus Christ said, don't give to the people that you think can help you. Give to the people who can't help you, and that's meaning, the poor people of the earth, that they're the ones that actually need the help. So don't give to somebody. But now I'm using it in a sense to deceased people. So it's not as, my actions aren't as holy as giving to charity is. So mine is to pay a debt to, so it's different. It's not as good. I guess maybe I shouldn't have quoted the Bible verse there for something that's not as holy as that Bible verse. But there, I've admitted that much at least. So, what I do, okay, but to give to the people now, enough about me and what I'm doing. This episode here, I got two members of the Beggar's Tomb Tapestry who recently become influences on me in my life still, and their artwork still. Because, lots of times when I put through this network of people, I knew of the network by researching the artists I knew closest. And these stones that you see biggest, those were the ones that I started with. They were the ones that were closest to my input here, some of the deceased artists. And so it branches out. Now that doesn't mean that these other people that are in the background are overshadowed by them. They're just not where they were at my starting point. So, that being said, Allen Ginsberg, who recently, I started to do an episode about him, was the last episode I started to do last late winter, early spring, and I did a poem reading, and I never got that episode finished. Just things came up, and it didn't seem to be an interest in the Beggar's Tomb for a while, because I let numbers influence my actions, and that's, probably usually not a good thing. I should have, but I didn't get it done until now, whatever. And but so Allen Ginsberg, just tell about him. Now he's not somebody who I knew a whole lot about, but through Neil Cassidy and William Burroughs and Jack Kerouac, all including him strongly at the core of what they did, and to the poem How, which I thought was amazing. Haven't been a huge into poetry outside of music. I usually like the music is what makes the poem, brings the poem home to me. And Allen Ginsberg didn't have music, so driving the point home, it really had to hit the nail. It really had to speak to me, and his words did in the poem How. So I was like, okay, that got him in the door, solidly. Plus, when you trust your sources, like I trusted, Jerry, Robert Hunter, Woody Guthrie. I got enough knowledge from them and their sources that when they mentioned their sources, I already trusted it going in. So I knew that what I would find out later was going to solidify the connection because it had solid enough vouchers. Okay, so he had solid enough vouchers, and when I had him on the tapestry, okay, I was out on tour one time, and you get lots of people. Some people come to tour as a way of life. Sometimes people needing to survive, and they drift into the tour to become part of it as a way to, I don't know, some people come into it for the music. There's all different ways. Some people are just at that show that night. Well, Gil, this guy from New York City, he was on a tour. It was a spring run of shows, and he was doing like all the shows. Now, you could tell right away from meeting the guy, he had money in his pockets and stuff, but he was constantly really respectful to me and all the other people who I'd see him talk to, respectful in a way that you really, some people who treat you with respect or treat you with respect because they think of your spot in that community on tour, and you can benefit them in that hierarchy. In the general world, I'm a poor person, but on Grateful Dead tour, I was not, I'm not bragging or whatever, just, hey, I'm the same person off tour as I am on tour, but my social value outside the community of where I put my work is lower than the place where I put my heart and soul into. Now, I put a lot of work into jobs, but somehow, whatever. It hasn't carried that same, because I didn't have the commitment to it to the day I die type of thing like I've had with the Beggar's Tomb. So because of that devoutness and that dedication, that's why I was, but that's not saying that it's a better life and it's what you should do. I'm just saying that whatever you do, if you were to put me in the role of someone who gives advice or what influence I have, well then let these words be the influence. Whatever you do, do it with dedication and passion and commitment, and it'll probably get you to where you need to be. Now, sometimes that job might end and then you just are out, and that's just the way it happens. Well, for whatever reason, that's sort of where the Beggar's Tomb is to a thing, but as you see, the dedication and the commitment hasn't given away, and a lot of it comes out of faith. Like I said, don't do things for numbers. I got faith in this love that I'm putting out there, and even though these people are deceased, what the love does. Going into good places, they're still living things, because the recordings they've left still have all the things that life, although they are not alive, they contribute to life. They still hold the nutrition, just like soil isn't alive, but to a plant that's growing and that is alive, they contribute to it, so therefore they are part of the life form. They are necessary for it. So back to Gil. Now, Gil was he gave me this a DVD that had all the shows on it, all in one disc. I didn't even have, it took years before I had the apparatus that could open them all, but there I had them all. And he was going in and filming all of them, and he was giving these out to the vendors and stuff because he wanted to contribute something, even though he was already buying the food. $5 was, but there was, in the respect he was giving, he was giving more respect than he maybe felt needed, than I felt he needed to, but he wanted to give to the community that he was coming in as a guest of and as a tourist to a degree. But I didn't think of him as like that because he was at home because he loved the music and he wanted to be there. Anybody who wanted to be there was at home there, I felt. That's the way I looked at it. And as long as they wanted to be there for the right reasons. If they came there to exploit people or to, make, just to get their arrest quota in and stuff, wasn't happy, wouldn't be happy about that, So, but if they were there respectfully and and wanting to be there and respectful and not doing bad things, and great, all the more the merrier. So Gil was amongst that. Well, he was checking out the names on the Beggar's Tomb tapestry, and he saw Allen Ginsberg, and he's like, "You got Ginsberg on here," and I'm thinking, why wouldn't I? And I really, this like it was, when he said it, it was like remembering his birthday. I surprised him was like when a person really takes something to heart and takes it personal that you gave them something, and that for a while, I don't know exactly when it was, I figured out why he really appreciated that so much, was so surprised by it, was he was a man of what people would refer to as a Jewish community, and he felt, and that's what we can do when we define communities so much, is by defining a community, you divide it, you sometimes, just by saying it, you create a line, and that line can sometimes seem like a boundary, but it wasn't, and it wasn't then, and it isn't now. It doesn't mean I can go to, it doesn't mean I'm telling you to open up all your boundaries to me. I'm just saying that my boundaries are open. And because I see a line doesn't mean that line divides me from human love, because the love of human beings and things we can all do for each other and contribute to each other, there is no lines there. That's what I feel like America's all about. But then you say American and you're defining it back in lines again. So that's what speech does. Anytime you speak of something, you put a label on it, and so you got to be a little. I hope what you said. I hope I'm conveying nice thoughts. I'm telling a story of something that happened there. So that boundary line, that's what the thing is. The Beggar's Tomb needs to be open. That's what I want it to be, because there's. I don't intentionally put people in here to open up boundaries, but if the person is here, in the broad range of people that are here, I feel like just because of the way it happened, call it God or whatever, God gives to all His children, and He's given special things, and if people bear fruits from that, and not only bear fruits, but show the ability to connect with the good of the fabric of life and sharing their fruits, then you find yourself in a loved. And so this is my work of love, and the people are included into it. Now, the other person I want to mention that's been recently a part of episodes in my life, I guess you'd say, things, just turn of events that happens, and the person comes up is James Brown. You talk about stepping over boundaries. Once again, you got a racial boundary, a color skin boundary, and not only that, but a whole genre of music. Because we know that the beatniks led into the hippies to a degree, and so you got that connection. But James Brown's a whole nother genre of music, soul. Well, actually, the beatniks learned a lot from the jazz community of the inner cities. Now, I don't have any jazz musicians here so far, unfortunately, perhaps, but that doesn't mean they're not here in spirit. Miles Davis and John Coltrane, to mention a couple, mention their name here, so that puts them here for, at least in memory to a degree, because they are part of what's flowed into this. Now, James Brown is here because he directly impacted. Let me tell you a story about right after James Brown passed away. I just so happened, I kind of gave away the, well, anyhow, it was 2006, New Year's, and I was in Atlanta, Georgia. And a friend of mine came up with a whole box of CDs. And he's like, I had my stereo system out playing it, and he was the type of guy that he would go and he would buy music a lot. And he'd keep up-to-date CDs, all different types of music. Real lover of music, and had enough money to go buy CDs a lot. And so he's like, take your pick, anything you want. And I looked at it through them all, and I pulled out a James Brown CD. And I put it in, started playing it, and him, and I think another guy too, but at least him, starts pouring beer out. And I'm like, what are you doing that for? It took me by surprise. And he's like, you didn't know? And James Brown passed away less than a week earlier on Christmas Day. And there I am in Atlanta, and that's the town where he passed away. And so really close, and I didn't know he passed away, and that was of all the music that was in that box, that's what really caught my eye. So that's the type of thing, connection, semi-magical. Another one, back with Allen Ginsberg, is the day that Allen Ginsberg passed away, April 5th of 1997. I happened to be on Haight Street in San Francisco. And I walked past a head shop. And when I walked past that head shop, I hear that Allen Ginsberg had passed away. And, it was sad news and stuff. Okay, that's not amazing that it was on Haight Street. No. But the very next time I'm in San Francisco, now that was only a 40-some hour stay there. Less than 2 days we were in that city. And then I wasn't back there at all until the next year. And when I'm there the next year, I get in an argument with my girlfriend. I walk down Haight Street by myself, and I walk past the same head shop and hear on the radio that William Burroughs had passed away. Now, only 2 times in my life I walked past that head shop, I heard the names of somebody who was on the Beggar's tomb had passed away. But not only that, but best friends. And their connection and their friendship was, another thing was they both were visited by Tibetan monks in dreams. And after passing, I heard from them. Well, I also was visited by Tibetan monks in dreams. So that those 2 crazy, unexplainable, coincidental things, I can't take as coincidence. They mean more to me than coincidence. Okay? And I feel justified in thinking that. It's like if you hear thunder and you see a big rain cloud coming and you see that mist coming down, you learn to know that that's rain. Well, that's how I feel about these coincidences. I know what it is because it's that strong. And so anyhow, that's a supernatural connection that I felt from beyond the grave to them, and solidified my faith in the Beggar's tomb and what it can mean. And so, it's part of what this all is. I don't believe that death is necessarily the end. And even though this thing seems, the project I felt at the beginning was to make sure that these people don't fade into history unappreciated for what they were. Because the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame sets up what they've got based on record sales. But the Beggar's Tomb sets things up a little different. It's a bond of love and to contributing to a certain amount of openness and freedom you got to be open to as an art performer, And all these people were, they didn't do it because they were trying to get into this. Because it's a beggar's tomb, it's not anything but it's guarded here with love, by love, and a power I do believe in. And that's what it's all about. And I'm glad you came here, and I hope you have a wonderful life of love, caring, and happiness.